At my daughter's birthday, my mom gave her a dollar store comb and said, "Pretty things aren't for kids like you." My daughter started crying. My sister burst out laughing. 30 minutes later, no one was laughing when I pulled the envelope from my bag. The birthday that changed everything. I, 34M, never thought a child's birthday party would be the day I'd finally cut ties with my own mother, but here we are. My daughter turned 7 last month. We threw her a party at our house. Nothing fancy, just family, cake, and presents. She'd been excited for weeks, practicing her thank yous in the mirror and helping my wife pick out decorations. She wanted everything purple and gold, her favorite colors that year. Mom showed up late, as usual. My sister arrived with her, both of them walking in like they owned the place. My sister had this smirk on her face that I recognized immediately. The same one she'd worn our entire childhood whenever she was about to say something cruel and pass it off as a joke. The party was going well until present time. My daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by gifts from aunts, uncles, and friends. She opened each one carefully, thanking everyone with genuine enthusiasm. My wife and I had taught her manners, and she was a naturally kind kid. Too kind, maybe. Too trusting. When she got to my mother's gift, I noticed it wasn't wrapped. It was in a thin plastic dollar store bag, the kind that tears if you look at it wrong. My daughter reached in and pulled out a cheap plastic comb, the type that breaks after 3 uses, with a faded cartoon character printed on the handle. The room got quiet. My daughter held it up, clearly confused but trying to smile anyway. She started to say thank you, but Mom cut her off. Mom told her that pretty things weren't for kids like her. She said it with this dismissive tone, like she was stating an obvious fact. My daughter's face crumpled. Her lower lip started trembling, and then the tears came. That's when my sister burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle or an awkward giggle. A full, theatrical laugh that echoed through our living room. She said something about how dramatic kids were these days, still laughing while my daughter cried. My wife immediately scooped our daughter up and took her to the bedroom. I could hear my daughter sobbing through the walls. The other guests had gone silent, staring at their plates or their phones, anywhere but at my mother and sister. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, running through scenarios in my head. I'd spent 34 years making excuses for my mother. 34 years being the mediator, the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over. I'd convinced myself that her behavior wasn't that bad, that she was just from a different generation, that family was family no matter what. But watching my 7-year-old daughter, my sweet, innocent little girl, cry because her own grandmother had essentially called her unworthy of nice things, something snapped. I walked to the entryway where I'd left my bag. I'd prepared for this moment, though I hadn't known when it would come. For months, I'd been documenting everything, gathering evidence, making calls. I pulled out a manila envelope and walked back into the living room. Mom asked what I was doing, still sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. My sister had finally stopped laughing but had this amused expression on her face, like she was waiting for the next entertaining thing to happen. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. I told Mom that I'd done some digging into the trust fund my grandfather had left me, the one she'd been managing since I was 18. She'd always told me it wasn't much, maybe $10,000 or $15,000. She'd said Grandpa had spent most of his money on medical bills before he died. I'd believed her. For 16 years, I'd believed her. Turns out my grandfather had left me nearly $400,000. The trust was supposed to transfer to me when I turned 25, with Mom as trustee until then. But when I turned 25, she told me the money was gone, spent on family emergencies and necessary expenses. She showed me statements, documents, explanations. I was busy with my new job and my new wife back then. I trusted my own mother. I signed whatever she put in front of me and moved on with my life. But 6 months ago, my wife's father passed away. While helping my mother-in-law with estate paperwork, I learned how trusts actually work. I learned about fiduciary duty, about documentation requirements, about how trustees can't just spend money without proper authorization and records. I started asking questions. I hired a lawyer, a good one, expensive, worth every penny. We subpoenaed records. We traced transactions. We built a case. The money was gone. That part was true. But it hadn't gone to family emergencies. It had gone to my sister. Mom had been funneling money from my trust fund to my sister for years. She'd bought my sister a car, paid in full, $30,000. She'd made the down payment on my sister's house, $60,000. She'd paid off my sister's credit card debt multiple times, another $40,000 at least. She'd funded my sister's wedding, her honeymoon, her various business ventures that always failed. My sister had been living off my inheritance while I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay my mortgage and build a life for my family. I laid out the bank statements on the coffee table. I showed them the highlighted transactions, the dates, the amounts. I explained what my lawyer had explained to me, that this wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. It was theft. It was fraud. It was breach of fiduciary duty. Mom's face went pale. She started making excuses, talking about how my sister had needed help, how family was supposed to help family, how I'd done fine without the money anyway. She said I was being selfish and vindictive. My sister wasn't laughing anymore. She was staring at the documents, her face red. She asked if I was seriously trying to destroy the family over money. She called me pathetic. I pulled out the second set of documents, the lawsuit I'd filed 3 days earlier. Mom and my sister were both named as defendants. My lawyer had assured me we had an airtight case. The statute of limitations hadn't run out because I'd only recently discovered the theft. We were suing for the full amount, plus interest, plus damages. I told them both to leave my house. Mom started crying, saying I couldn't do this to her, that she was my mother. My sister stood up and called me several names I won't repeat. She said I'd always been the golden child, that I'd never understood how hard she had it. I pointed to the door and told them again to leave. Several of the other guests had already quietly slipped out during my revelation. My aunt, Mom's sister, stood up and said she'd always suspected something like this. She said she'd testify if needed. Then she hugged me and left. Mom and my sister finally walked out. My sister slammed the door hard enough that one of the birthday decorations fell off the wall. I stood in my living room, surrounded by half-eaten cake and scattered presents, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no relief. Just a strange emptiness. My wife came out of the bedroom and asked if they were gone. I nodded. She asked if I was okay. I told her I would be. My daughter came out a few minutes later, still sniffling. She asked if Grandma was mad at her. My heart broke all over again. I picked her up, held her close, and told her that Grandma was wrong. I told her she was beautiful and kind and deserving of every pretty thing in the world. I told her that sometimes grown-ups say cruel things because they're unhappy inside, and that it had nothing to do with her. She asked if Grandma was unhappy. I said yes, probably. She asked if we could pray for Grandma to be happier. I almost cried right there. My daughter, with tears still drying on her cheeks, wanted to pray for the woman who'd just hurt her. I told her we could. That night, after my daughter was asleep, my wife and I talked for hours. She asked if I was sure about the lawsuit. I told her I'd never been more sure of anything. This wasn't just about the money, though we could certainly use it. Our mortgage was crushing us. We had student loans. We'd been putting off necessary home repairs because we couldn't afford them. But more than that, it was about my daughter. It was about the pattern I'd finally recognized. Mom had always treated me differently than my sister. My sister was the favorite, spoiled, indulged, never held accountable for anything. I was the responsible one, the one who had to earn approval, the one who was expected to succeed without help. I convinced myself it wasn't that bad. I told myself that some parents just have favorites, that it didn't mean Mom didn't love me. But watching her deliberately hurt my daughter, watching her give a cruel gift designed to make a child feel less than, I finally saw the truth. Mom didn't just favor my sister. She actively resented me. Maybe because I'd succeeded despite her lack of support. Maybe because I'd built a good life with a woman she hadn't chosen for me. Maybe because my daughter was mixed race and didn't fit whatever image Mom had in her head of what her granddaughter should look like. That last part, I'd been avoiding thinking about it for years. My wife is black. My daughter is beautiful, with her mother's deep brown eyes and her curly hair that we'd learned to care for properly. But Mom had been making subtle comments since the day my daughter was born. Comments about hair texture, about skin tone, about how kids just weren't as cute as they used to be. I'd made excuses for those too. I'd convinced myself Mom was just old-fashioned, that she didn't mean anything by it. But that gift, that comment about pretty things not being for kids like my daughter, there was no excusing that. No explaining it away. My wife asked what I thought would happen with the lawsuit. I told her my lawyer was confident. The evidence was clear. Mom had violated her legal duty as trustee. My sister had knowingly received stolen funds. But I also told her I didn't care what happened legally. I was done. Even if we never recovered a penny, I was done with both of them. Update 1. The lawsuit moved forward faster than I expected. Mom hired a lawyer who immediately tried to get it dismissed. The motion failed. We went into discovery, where my lawyer requested even more documents. That's when things got interesting. During discovery, we learned that Mom had also taken out credit cards in my name when I was 19. She'd forged my signature, using my social security number and the trust fund address. She'd maxed them out, about $15,000 total, and then defaulted on them. I'd wondered why my credit was mysteriously damaged when I tried to buy my first car at 22. Mom had told me that identity theft was common, that someone must have stolen my information. She'd helped me file a police report and dispute the debts. The whole time, she'd known she was the one who'd done it. My lawyer added this to the lawsuit. We also reported it as identity theft, real identity theft this time. The police opened an investigation. My sister started calling. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, angry at first, then pleading. She said I was tearing the family apart over nothing. She said Mom had only been trying to help her get on her feet. She said I'd always had everything easy and couldn't understand what she'd been through. I saved the voicemails. My lawyer said they might be useful. Mom tried a different approach. She started calling my wife's phone. She left messages saying she was sorry, that she'd made mistakes, that families should forgive each other. She said she'd pay everything back somehow. She said she was living on a fixed income and this lawsuit would destroy her. My wife blocked her number. The truth was, Mom wasn't living on a fixed income. She owned her house outright, a house my grandfather had left her. She had a comfortable pension from her years as a teacher. She had savings. She'd just spent my inheritance on my sister instead of keeping it safe for me. 3 months after the birthday party, we had our first mediation session. A neutral third party tried to help us reach a settlement. Mom's lawyer offered to pay back $50,000, about 12% of what had been stolen. My lawyer said no. Mom cried during the mediation. She told the mediator that I was her son, that she'd raised me, that I was being cruel and vindictive. She said she'd made some mistakes with the trust fund, but hadn't meant any harm. She said my sister had been desperate and she'd only been trying to help both of her children. The mediator asked if I wanted to respond. I told her I'd been working since I was 15 to pay for things Mom said we couldn't afford. I told her I'd paid my own way through college while Mom made the down payment on my sister's house with my money. I told her about the birthday party, about the dollar store comb, about my daughter's tears. The mediator went quiet. She asked Mom why she'd given such a gift to her granddaughter. Mom said it was just a misunderstanding, that she hadn't meant to hurt anyone. The mediation ended without a settlement. My daughter, meanwhile, was doing better. We'd taken her to a child therapist, just a few sessions to help her process what had happened. The therapist said she was resilient, that kids were good at bouncing back, but that we should watch for signs of damaged self-esteem. My daughter asked a few times why Grandma didn't visit anymore. We told her that Grandma had made some choices that weren't okay, and we were taking a break from her for a while. She accepted this more easily than I'd expected. Kids understand fairness instinctively, even when they can't articulate it. We also started teaching her about discrimination, about how some people judge others based on how they look, and how that's always wrong. She was young, but not too young to start learning about the realities of the world. My wife's parents stepped up in a big way. They'd always been good grandparents, but after the birthday incident, they became even more involved. My daughter spent weekends with them. They took her shopping and let her pick out pretty things, hair accessories, clothes, toys. They made sure she knew she was loved and valued exactly as she was. Update 2. 6 months after the birthday party, we went to trial. I'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, that Mom would accept a reasonable settlement, but she'd refused every offer that involved real accountability. The trial lasted 3 days. My lawyer presented the evidence methodically, bank statements, trust documents, signatures, transfers. We had an expert witness, a forensic accountant, who walked the jury through exactly how the money had been diverted. Mom's lawyer tried to argue that everything had been a series of misunderstandings, that Mom had believed she was acting in my best interest, that the trust document language was ambiguous. The judge wasn't buying it. Neither was the jury. My sister was also called to testify. She tried to claim she hadn't known the money was mine, that Mom had told her it was a gift. My lawyer produced text messages between them, messages my sister had foolishly not deleted, where they explicitly discussed the trust fund and how to avoid me finding out about the transfers. In one message, my sister had written that I didn't need the money anyway since I had a good job. In another, Mom had written that the money should go to whoever needed it most, and that wasn't me. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They found in my favor on every count. The judge ordered Mom to repay the full amount of the trust fund plus interest, just over $500,000 at this point. She also ordered Mom to pay my legal fees. Because the credit card fraud involved identity theft, there were criminal implications too. The prosecutor offered Mom a deal, probation and restitution if she pled guilty. She took it. She avoided jail time, but now she had a criminal record. My sister faced civil liability too, since she'd knowingly received stolen funds. Her lawyer negotiated a separate settlement where she'd repay her portion, around $130,000, over 10 years. I never spoke to either of them during the trial. I looked at them occasionally, trying to feel something: anger, sadness, vindication. Mostly I just felt tired. After the verdict, Mom's lawyer approached mine in the hallway. He asked if we'd consider negotiating the repayment terms. My lawyer said we'd consider a structured payment plan rather than demanding a lump sum, but that the full amount had to be repaid. Mom ended up selling her house. She moved into a small apartment. I heard through extended family that she was bitter, that she told anyone who'd listen that I'd destroyed her life over money, that I'd valued dollars over my own mother. But some of the family saw it differently. My aunt, the one who'd offered to testify, told me that other relatives had started coming forward with their own stories of Mom's favoritism, of times she'd been cruel or manipulative. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd been making excuses for her for years. My wife asked me once if I felt guilty. I told her honestly that I didn't. I felt relieved. I felt free. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't carrying the weight of pretending my family was something it wasn't. Update 3. A year after the birthday party, we threw my daughter another party. This time it was just close friends and my wife's family. No drama, no tension, just kids playing games and eating too much cake. My daughter opened her presents with the same careful enthusiasm she'd shown the year before. She was 8 now, getting taller, getting older. She'd largely moved past what had happened with my mother, though occasionally she'd ask questions. She asked once if people who did bad things could become good again. I told her yes, but that it required them to genuinely want to change, to acknowledge what they'd done wrong and work to make it right. I told her that some people never take those steps, and that's sad, but it's their choice. She thought about this for a while, then asked if I thought Grandma would ever say sorry for real. I told her I didn't know, but that we couldn't wait around for an apology that might never come. We had to live our lives and be happy regardless. She seemed satisfied with this answer. The money from the settlement came through in stages. We paid off our mortgage first. The feeling of owning our home outright, of having that security, was indescribable. We set up a college fund for our daughter, in an account that only my wife and I could access. We made necessary repairs to the house. We breathed easier. We also started donating to organizations that helped mixed-race families, that fought against discrimination, that supported children who'd experienced emotional abuse from family members. We couldn't fix what had happened to our daughter, but we could help prevent it from happening to others. I never heard from Mom directly after the trial. My sister tried to reach out once, asking if we could talk, saying she wanted to apologize. I told her I'd be willing to listen if she acknowledged specifically what she'd done, not just a vague sorry, but a real accounting of the harm she'd caused. She never responded to that. I wasn't surprised. Sometimes I wondered if I'd been too harsh, if there was a path to reconciliation I'd missed. But then I'd remember my daughter's face at that birthday party, the confusion and hurt in her eyes, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Being a parent means protecting your children, even when, especially when, the threat comes from within your own family. It means breaking cycles of cruelty and favoritism. It means showing your kids that they deserve respect and kindness, that they should never accept mistreatment just because it comes from family. My daughter would grow up knowing that we'd chosen her over appearances, over comfort, over the path of least resistance. She'd know that when someone hurt her, even someone who was supposed to love her, we stood up for her without hesitation. That was worth more than any inheritance could ever be. Last month, my daughter came home from school excited about a project. They were supposed to interview a family member about a time they'd had to make a difficult choice. She wanted to interview me. I thought carefully about how to explain it in age-appropriate terms. I told her about having to choose between keeping peace in the family and standing up for what was right. I told her that sometimes people we love make choices that hurt us, and we have to decide how to respond. I told her that I chose to protect her, even though it meant losing relationships with other people I cared about. She asked if it was hard. I told her it was one of the easiest hard choices I'd ever made. When it came to her well-being, there was no question about what mattered most. She wrote that in her report. Her teacher wrote a note saying it was one of the most honest and moving family stories she'd read in her years of teaching. At night, I tucked my daughter into her bed, surrounded by pretty things, a room painted her favorite colors, shelves full of books and toys, a jewelry box with child-safe necklaces and bracelets that her other grandmother had given her. She was loved. She was valued. She knew it. That was everything. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.